goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, the NHS is in the midst of arguably its biggest crisis since its exemption almost 75 years ago. So why is critical debate about how we save it still being shut down? And why are suggestions like charging for GP appointments and A&E proposed by ex-Health Secretary Sajid Javid still met with outrage? My analysis in the digest next, before I poll my superstar panel. Tonight, Carol Malone, Nigel Nelson and Carol McGiffin. And later in the show, 2 blockbuster exclusives are coming your way. At 10:40, one of the nation's best-loved entertainers, Jim Davidson, hits back at Sadiq Khan for the first time after this outrageous display of snobbery.
Now that the only celebrities wishing to endorse the Tories are Jim Davidson and people of that ilk.
Now, in an interview you don't want to miss, Jim says London's failed mayor is racist against white working-class men. Plus, as fears of a UK defund the police movement grow in the wake of the Met scandals, America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who stopped New York's crime waves in its track, says a zero-tolerance stance is the solution to tackling lawless Britain, not declaring the authorities. He joins me live at 10:20. Meanwhile, as he speaks out for the first time since the Sussexes rejected his Meghan column apology, is Jeremy Clarkson right to warn of a woke, invisible army calling the shots behind the scenes? That's our big debate at 10:30. And is King Charles right to ban Prince Harry from the Buckingham Palace balcony if he attends the coronation? I'll get your verdict on the latest royal reports in the clash at 9:20 and the latest from Harry's biographer Angela Levin. Plus, the Montecito Mona's weird little mouthpiece Omid Scobie has been sensationally exposed as a liar by one of his own masters.
A best-selling book describes the day Special Forces came to our house, all of which is utter nonsense.
And not content with lobbying the Brits to erase gender, Sam Smith is now identifying as arguably Britain's top female music star.
Everyone seems to think that I'm Adele. In drag. Because we've never been seen in the same room together.
I'll bring you more on those viral moments in the media buzz throughout the 10 hour. Plus, as SNP politicians are slammed for posing in front of a decapitate TERFs sign at a pro-gender reform protest, is Nicola Sturgeon's party in bed with women-hating extremists? Our man in Stirling, Neil Oliver, weighs in on that. And Lawrence Fox tackles fears that 80,000 illegal migrants, almost double last year's numbers, could hit British shores by 2023. That's the Fox report at 9:35. Plus, with Canada set to repatriate so-called enemy of Britain jihadi Jack and Shamim team of Meghan launching a charm offensive via the BBC. Why is the West allowing ISIS runaways to rehabilitate their image? We'll debate at 10. We'll have tomorrow's newspapers for you too. A first look at them and a new Greatest Britain Union jackass on the way as well. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. I hope you had a great weekend and you're all cosy and snuggled up warm tonight. My digest in just a moment, but first, the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The Prime Minister has asked an independent ethics advisor to investigate the Tory party chair's tax affairs. Nadeem Zahawi has welcomed the investigation, saying he's confident he acted properly throughout. The former Chancellor has admitted, though, he paid a penalty to HMRC following an error over shares in the polling company YouGov, which he co-founded. He hasn't disclosed the size of the settlement, which is believed to be almost £5 million. Meanwhile, BBC Chairman Richard Sharp says he welcomes a review into how he got his job by the Commissioner of Public Appointments. That's after Mr Sharp asked for a scrutiny panel to examine potential conflicts of interest following claims he was involved in securing a loan of up to £800,000 for Boris Johnson. He insists he didn't make a loan or arrange any financing and only made an introduction to a guarantor. Thousands of ambulance workers have been striking for the third time in 5 weeks today. Unison and GMB union members across England and Wales walked out, along with staff at 2 hospital trusts in Liverpool. Further industrial action is planned in the coming weeks by nurses and other NHS workers. Union leaders are calling for fair pay, accusing the government of not wanting to find a resolution. Now, households that cut down their energy use for a second day in a row could save themselves some money. 26 suppliers have signed up to the National Grid's Demand Flexibility Scheme. That's run its first live test today and happened between 5 and 6 p.m. The scheme involves paying businesses and households to turn off electric appliances for an hour or two each day. The electricity grid is planning on running the same scheme again tomorrow afternoon. The hours tomorrow that'll be in effect 4:30 to 6 p.m. And Ofgem says the energy price cap could fall below £3,000 from April. It said it's due to the fall in the wholesale price of gas and electricity. It was possible to lower average costs for households, and it would mean little savings for energy users due to the government's price guarantee, which protects from higher prices. But it could save the government billions of pounds as well. And lastly, a firefighter is fighting for their life after battling a blaze at a former department store in the centre of Edinburgh. Scottish Fire and Rescue were called to the Jenner's building at around 11:30 this morning. We understand 22 fire appliances sent to the scene. The Fire Brigades Union says at least 5 firefighters had to be taken to hospital for treatment. Those are the top stories on GB News. You're up to date on TV online and DAB+ radio. Back now to Dan Wootton Tonight.
When Sajid Javid was Health Secretary, like virtually all senior ministers put in charge of the health service, he did nothing to discourage the religious fervour that has developed around, quote, our NHS.
The NHS is our greatest national institution. It's there for us when we're born, through the ups and downs of our lives, and in our final years. Everyone in this country has reason to be grateful to the NHS.
6 months out of the job, and with his retirement from politics now announced, Javid, albeit too late, has transformed into the Tories' radical reformer. As I have been saying for years, Javid now admits that, quote, too often the appreciation for the NHS has become a religious fervour and a barrier to reform. and advocating what would have been the unsayable while in the Cabinet, he has actually gone one step further, calling for Brits to start paying to see an NHS GP and for A&E visits as a crucial part of saving the service. So he writes in the Times newspaper, the 75-year-old model of the NHS is unsustainable, and unless it is radically reformed, the principles on which it was founded cannot survive much longer. This may not be a popular view, but we are at the crossroads, and I feel it needs to be said. Javid is right, of course, but this is not a debate you'll find any MP from either side of the House prepared to have, because questioning the nonsensical free-at-the-point-of-views philosophy of the NHS has long been considered political suicide. So I think it's time there's political consensus that this debate needs to be had, and now. Your NHS GP might be free, but they're sure as hell not free to see you. I'm sure, like me, you'll struggle making a phone call to your local surgery recently, only to be told, you know, you might get a phone call from the GP in a week's time in some sort of 3-hour block if you're lucky. The system is a joke. It's not working. And countries where you pay to see the GP, like Australia, give you a first-class service where you choose which doctor you see and when. I actually experienced this for myself while on holiday there earlier this month. The chances of picking up long-term serious health conditions improve significantly under that sort of setup. So Rishi Sunak was at yet another hospital today, but avoiding the conversations that need to be had about how to save our crisis-hit NHS, and instead promising to pump in even more cash to the NHS black hole, which now takes up 44% of all departmental spending. This time, it was for mental health services.
It's really important that those people who are struggling with mental health challenges get the treatment they need as quickly as possible and as effectively and compassionately as possible. Today's announcement of £150 million will ensure that that is the case.
But what happened to this Sunak on the campaign trail last summer, who, while he didn't go as far as Javid, advocated for people having to pay a small fee for missed NHS GP appointments?
15 million missed appointments in hospitals and in GPs. So if we had a system which was tougher on people for missing appointments, and it's not about making money from them, it's about changing the culture, so that's unacceptable. Because if we do that and people cancel them in advance, what have we done? We've just created lots more healthcare for everybody. We get the backlogs down quicker with no more taxpayers.
Now that he's in power, that Sunak has disappeared too. Look, if our political leaders continue with a conspiracy of silence about the fundamental issues confronting the NHS, which are seismic and critical, then the entire system is going to collapse. We all have to shift our mindset and actually start thinking the unthinkable. Because as Javid rightly puts it, the narrative of adulation has had a chilling effect of stopping reform. That means it's the NHS itself now fighting for its life. But to respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, political editor at the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, and the columnist and media personality, Carol McGiffin. Malone, we have to actually listen to Javid here, don't we? He was running the health service 6 months ago, and he's saying that unless we start charging for GP appointments and to use the A&E, it's going to collapse.
It's interesting, Rishi was talking about the 15 million missed appointments. Each GP's appointment costs the NHS £30. So even if you imposed a £10 fee for that, you're still 20 quid short. There are 15 million of those every year. That's at a cost of 216 million to the NHS. 8 million hospital appointments are missed every year as well. And, people, I think, if you don't pay for a service, I think you have no respect for it, And I know people say, I pay through national health contributions, all the rest of it. And I wouldn't mind, if the NHS, I think last count was something like 190 billion it was getting during COVID. That's back to about 175 billion a year now. I wouldn't mind if the system worked, but it doesn't work anymore. You have people waiting for months for routine operations, for routine appointments. We've got to stop pretending that the NHS is as a sacred cow. It's a service, and it's a service that doesn't work very well. It's the biggest employer of people in the whole of Europe. It employs 2% of all Brits, and yet it is not providing the service we need. It lets people down on a daily basis. You know, we have the worst cancer cure rate in Europe. We're very keen to say, oh, it's free at the point of service, but our healthcare outcomes are pretty bad.
And McGiff, I think one of the things that Javid pointed out that was actually really interesting, this adulation, this religious fervour around the NHS is actually deeply irresponsible, because it means that politicians are too scared to actually question the NHS.
Well, no one can say anything bad about it, because if you do, you're a heretic. It is a national religion now, the NHS. And the problem is, I don't think that people should be required to put any more money into it. They shouldn't have to pay for anything. £180 billion a year is a hell of a lot of money. And when you actually look at how much money they waste, they overpay for products, they overpay for staff, or rather they sack their nurses for, or healthcare staff got sacked for not having the vaccine. They
Which
haven't
was
replaced
disgraceful.
them. Absolutely.
And that was under Javid, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
And that should not be forgotten.
Yeah.
Even though I'm backing what he said here today, we cannot forget what Javid did with the vaccine mandates.
Yeah.
It's so morally wrong.
So if they can't make it work with 180 billion, it doesn't matter how much money you put into it, they will still waste money. You go through, like, The Guardian or whatever it is, where they advertise these jobs for diversity officers getting 50 grand a year. And it's like, how many of those, and more, exactly, how many of those people could you do without? Probably all of them.
A lot of the six-figure suits you could certainly do without.
I mean, Nigel, Carol makes a very fair point, doesn't she? The NHS is starting to bankrupt the country. If you look at it as a percentage of departmental spending, I think in the year 2000 it was around 27%. It's now 44% of all government departmental spending. I mean, it is literally coming close to bankruptcy.
Yeah, and what should have happened is that we should have had this conversation 40-odd years ago when we knew there was an ageing population that was going to make the NHS unsustainable. And you're absolutely right, politicians have shied away from having this conversation. So I welcome the fact that Sajid Javid has said what he has, not because I agree with everything he says, but because the conversation has opened up. Better if he'd done it when he was health secretary.
Well, indeed. I'm a bit like 6 months too late, mate. But it is still an important point of view, because at least he has the balls to say it now, which a lot of former health secretaries, not mentioning one in particular, do not have. I did want to speak to you specifically, though, about something your folk on the left do a lot, because Javid pointed it out in his piece. He said it's highly irresponsible for Labour and the left-wing media, and you see this in your newspaper, The Mirror, a lot, pushing this conspiracy theory that if anyone in the Conservative Party wants to reform the NHS, immediately they're part of some sort of privatisation, secret privatisation plot. And Javid is saying that is not true, but what it does is it puts terror in politicians to actually start talking about reform, which we saw happen recently in Scotland.
Yeah. But, I mean, West Streeting is almost echoed Javid, not about charging, but he's talked about the NHS as a service, not a shrine. It must reform or die. So in the Labour Party, they're also coming to the same kind of conclusions, that now the situation is urgent.
Not charging, though.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is that it depends obviously it's going to depend what you charge for. The NHS has only been free at the point of use for 3 years of its 75-year existence. Nye Bevan resigned because they started charging for dentures and glasses. So the principle...
And prescriptions you have to pay for.
Yeah, exactly. And so the principle was broken a long time ago. Where I think that Javid needs to actually focus, and where we should all focus, is how you protect, say, the most vulnerable, the old, the young. So,
but Carol, they're not going to have to pay. They're not going to have to pay. And all of these countries,
well, 9
by the
in
way...
10 of them won't pay. That's the important
well, yeah, but
point.
all of these countries, like Australia, New Zealand, Norway, if you are poor, if you are a student, if you are very old, then you are exempt from the charges. And that's, none of us are going to disagree with that.
No, McGiff is right when she says that, you know, that if you cannot manage on 180 billion a year, you're not doing it right. And, of course, we're not doing it right. The minute the NHS gets more money from government, what it does with it immediately employs more managers, more suits, more people for committees and consultants. We don't want that. Somebody pointed, I read a piece today where they said that doctors and nurses have a ridiculous amount of paperwork to do now. They're always doing paperwork, they're chasing results, they're dealing with IT problems. Forget that. Take on some lower paid people, some assistants to deal with that, and let the doctors and nurses do their job, free them up to do all of that. But also get some organisation. It should be organised from a central point. You mentioned the procurement before, One hospital can pay 36 pence for a toilet roll, another one can pay £2.50. Why are we letting that happen?
But none of
should be
this will
centralised.
change. None of this will change while our politicians are terrified to tackle the issue, because it's the golden
But
child.
That's why the conversation is so important.
There already is a two-tier system. Because more and more frequently you see, there's a whole floor in my local hospital which is all for private work now. It's all for private. And then you've got, when you go onto the doctor's website, it just gives you a list of all the things that you can have right now, but you have to pay for them. So the people who can afford to pay for it do pay for it.
But you
So
were
they're paying
saying
twice. People are paying twice, and people are having to go privately. Like Sajid Javid
but in
said,
a way,
makes you wait.
We're going to have to go down that road. If people have money to pay,
but it's happening already.
Yeah, well, it's sort of. Is it? I mean, I think a lot of people on principle don't pay. I had to pay for an X-ray for someone recently, and it was for something that I thought could have been serious, and I thought I'm not going to wait 6 months to find out if I've got this thing, because it's going to kill me. And I paid for the X-ray.
Encouraged to do that, but
completely.
We will continue
Nothing
the
more
conversation
important
here. Carol Malone, Nigel Nelson, Carol McGiffin, my superstar panel, and they are with me all night. But coming up, Lawrence Fox tackles everything from the shocking Channel crisis predictions for 2023 to the vegan food revolt against Britain's wokest council. That's the Fox report. You don't want to miss it at 9:35. But up next in The Clash, should King Charles ban the Sussexes from the Buckingham Palace balcony if they attend the coronation? Royal biographer Angela Levin and author and journalist Ernest Owens clash straight after the break. But it's your view that matters the most to me, so email me down at gbnews.uk. Vote in our poll at GB News. The results coming up straight after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go. But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for The Clash. More details have been released about King Charles's historic coronation weekend in May, the first of its kind in 70 years. On top of a concert of stars and a day of volunteering, it's been confirmed the newly crowned King Charles and Queen Consort will make a highly anticipated appearance on the Buckingham Palace balcony after the Westminster Abbey ceremony. But speculation as to whether the Sussexes will be involved following the release of Prince Harry's tell-all memoir Spare and their damning Netflix series continues. In their latest turn, a senior royal insider has revealed to the Mail on Sunday that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, as well as the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, are unlikely to join the King and Queen and senior royals on the balcony and other major public appearances. But is that the correct call? Do you think King Charles is right to ban the Sussexes from the Buckingham Palace balcony if they do intend the coronation? Let me know your thoughts. Email me Dan at gbnews.uk, vote in our poll at GB News. But to help you make up your mind, we're joined by the biographer of Prince Harry and the Queen Consort, Angela Levin, and the pro-Meghan and Harry journalist, Ernest Owens. Angela Levin, do you think they should be banned from the balcony if they attend?
Absolutely. I mean, I was very, very fond of Prince Harry when I did his biography, spent over a year with him. And now I just think he's horrible, nasty, spiteful, resentful and spoilt. And more. I've got more adjectives to use, but I think he's just let so many people down, actually, who've cared about the monarchy and cared about how he was and, you know, when would he get married. We really were interested in him as if he was part of our own family. And now I just can't stand him. I think his rudeness is beyond imagination.
And I think, Angela, actually, it would really sour the event for a lot of Brits if they were to see Harry and Meghan on that balcony alongside William and Charles and Kate and Camilla after everything that those two have said about our senior royals.
I think it's very difficult for King Charles because he has his duty to the country and the Commonwealth, but he also has feelings of a father and he's loved Harry. So it's a very difficult one. But in this instance, I think you cannot have someone who says they hate the UK, who love living in the USA and attack their father and their brother, who is heir to the throne. You can't have them there. Also, you can't trust them because they'll sell everything that they can get onto and get another TV documentary.
Including private phone conversations, by the way, and private face-to-face conversations.
Yeah, I think it will spoil it. I think it will really spoil it. They'll also take over. All the papers will want to talk about them and how they are and what they're doing. So you have to get rid of them because this is King Charles's day, his day and Camilla's day, and they deserve to be absolutely respected and say what they want to say and be the king and queen of the country. We don't want somebody who really hates the monarchy there. And I think King Charles has to think about William, his older son and heir. And William is absolutely furious with his brother.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to think of that
Indeed,
too.
and for
Not
very
just
good
stuff
reason.
about
But
him.
by the way, a punch-up between William and Harry on the Buckingham Palace balcony, no, it wouldn't be particularly regal, would it? So
They might
Ernest
push
Owen...
one of them or each other over the
Yes,
balcony.
indeed. No, we don't want that.
No, we don't.
Ernest Owens, why do you think, in that context, given all of the criticisms they have made about the British royal family and Charles and Camilla and William and Kate personally, why on earth do you think they should be on the balcony?
Because they're family. And I think canceling family members will only further the divide and actually prove the point. So my book is called The Case for Cancel Culture.
Yeah, I thought you
Dan,
liked
I'm
cancel
surprised
culture.
That you all are supporting Harry being canceled, the Sussex being canceled out of Great Britain. I'm surprised that you're in
He
that.
can come back. Do you know what, Ernest?
But
He
you're
can come
saying
back
that
as
they're
a
cancelling them
private
out
citizen, but
the
he
balcony.
cancelled himself.
I think, but that's family, and I think that we should
his
let
father,
family
he's cancelled his
work on
brother.
that. I think
Not
that
how
the
you
family
behave
needs to come
about a
together,
family.
and I think that canceling Harry and Meghan in this situation will not bring the family together. I also think that it will not be productive in trying to mend the relationship. Harry has said multiple times he's willing to do so. And I also think that if you don't like Harry, you're actually fueling the rhetoric that he's trying to say. That
He
the royal
says he's
family is
willing
the
to do so if he can
testing his
control
father,
what's happening.
he's
I'm
testing the king.
sorry.
Okay,
And
Ernest,
I
just
think that by
Ernest,
following,
hear you
following
loud
this
and clear.
logic,
Okay, hear you loud and clear. Just let Angela respond, and then we'll bring you back in.
He has said he will agree to come in a very patronising way, but it's as if he's doing all the organising, and he says that he wants a talk first to go through everything. He wants an apology, especially to Meghan. Now, you can bet your socks that he's not just going to accept one apology. He's going to want about 3,000 things that they've done wrong. We've seen that from his book. And he'll go on and on and on. And you can't let somebody who's been so malicious win. You just can't. It's nothing to do with family. He's actually thrown his family to the lions. He's been absolutely appalling. Now, if he really apologises and he agrees he will not use anything that happens on that day to make some money out of it, then people can think again, but he won't do that.
Ernest, is that not a fair point? The problem that you've got is that the royal family welcomed Harry and Meghan back with open arms for the funeral of Prince Philip and the funeral of the late Queen Elizabeth II. He then took that goodwill and trampled all over it by including private conversations between him, William and Charles, which took place after Prince Philip's funeral, and literally quoting them in his book to make millions of pounds.
So what I will say to that is that I think that there has been hurt across both sides. I think that people could argue that there has been things in the British press that has speculated that maybe, his wife, Camilla, also did certain things. I'm not going to dispute the back and forth about it, but it seems like both parties have had issues. You all have picked a side. I see problems on both sides. I don't think Harry's a saint here. I'm not foolish enough to think that Harry and Meghan are perfect. I think that they have done things that have definitely made the situation difficult. But I also think that the family has too. And I think we as the public and we as the press should have a moment of grace to say, let them work that out. But I think simply banning him is not going to make the family get any closer. I don't think there's going to be any resolution.
But if he makes all
I think this
sorts
could
of
be a nice
arguments,
gesture and a nice chance to give them a chance. If you don't want to give them a chance,
you can't
just
do that
simply
on the coronation. You can't do that. This is the first coronation since 1953. You can't let Harry win. You can't let him be the number one. No, no, no. This is King Charles and this is Queen Camilla's. This is not Harry. He's the one who has to compromise on such an amazing day.
So Ernest, you think Charles will actually give in and he will say, I'll allow Harry to be there? Okay.
Yes, I think they're going to fix it because the world stage is looking. It's not just Britain looking. The rest of this country's looking. And if he doesn't do it, you're going to see international press outside of Britain that is going to look at this as saying, you see, look, he won't let Meghan come. You know how they're going to go about it.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're implying, Ernest, but what you're doing is implying that there is a racist motivation behind this. That's what you're implying. And we don't do censorship on this show, so just say what you think, Ernest. That's what you're implying.
What I'm thinking is that by them doing it, it's going to be implied that the royal family has turned their back on his family. They're going to look at them as the antagonists.
They're not turning their back on his family.
And for nothing
They're not letting somebody who's been so rude.
Okay.
You can't let somebody so rude who's going to take all the publicity away from them.
Indeed, I agree. But look, fascinating debate. Harry's former biographer, current Camilla biographer Angela Levin, and the journalist and author of The Case for Cancel Culture, Ernest Owen. So who do you agree with on that? Should the Sussexes be banned from the balcony at the coronation? Well, Kim on Twitter says they should not attend in the first place. Amen, Kim. I'm with you there. From Will, hopefully not Will at Kensington Palace. The simple answer is it's up to the King and not the rest of us. Remember, we only know the information we have been fed, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it. And from Shirley, oh dear, I can already see this becoming an anecdote and spare the sequel. Chapter 7, hierarchy on the balcony the day Daddy banned me. Oh, indeed. And your verdict is now in. You're overwhelmingly with Angela Levin on this. 93% of you think that the Sussexes should be banned from the balcony at the King's coronation. Just 7% of you with Ernest saying that they should be up there, although Ernest, I think he may have a point. I think Charles might want to do the whole olive branch thing, even though I think that's a big mistake. Now, coming up, after senior SNP politicians pose in front of a disgraceful sign reading, and I can't believe this, decapitate TERFs at a pro-gender reform protest, has Sturgeon's party ended up in bed with misogynist extremist? Neil Oliver has his say from Stirling at 9:45. But first, with 80,000 asylum seekers predicted to land on British shores this year alone, and with Brit bosses already considering a humiliating U-turn on their gender-neutral awards, Lawrence Fox joins me for a critical edition of the Fox Report. He's live straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView, Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for the Fox Report, and Sunday saw a shocking but sadly typical surge of migrants arrive at the port of Dover. GB News revealed over 400 people made the crossing on the busiest day yet of 2023. As we've grown wearily accustomed to by now, toothless French naval vessels shadowed the small boats while refusing to intervene or intercept them on their perilous journey across to the UK. With weather conditions improving, Border Force sources now fear the annual number of channel crossings could be, wait for it, almost double this year, with 80,000 migrants entering the already overwhelmed asylum system. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak recently pledged to stop these small boats, and this latest influx shows there is no time to waste. But Lawrence Fox, 80,000 by the end of this year? I mean, surely at that point that becomes politically unsustainable for Sunak.
Absolutely, 100%. You know what? You've got to compare this, Dan, to what's going on with the open southern border in the United States and the absolutely horrific murders of some people in California this weekend, including a mother and her children. The problem with this woke madness is that what happens is genuine refugees are getting ignored. And economic migrants, mostly from Albania at the moment, are able to come back and forth willy-nilly. I think we play a game of bumper cars with them. And you go out and get that rubber dinghy and push it straight back to France. That's what I do.
Now, Lawrence, last year's Brit Awards saw bosses finally cave to woke pressure to introduce gender-neutral awards, but after just 12 months, an embarrassing U-turn could already be on the cards. So while 2022's ceremony saw Adele claim the newly created Artist of the Year, this year's Brits didn't have a single female nominee, which I did predict. And you know, look, the Artist of the Year award may have been designed to be more inclusive and relevant, but in reality, Lawrence, I would claim it has translated to blatant misogyny. So isn't this actually proof now that these gender-neutral awards, which are apparently very woke, are actually part of a war on women?
Who would have thought, Dan, that woke would go to die at the Brits? I'm sure you've had a few good evenings at the Brits.
Oh, yes, I have.
I certainly have. But I saw Owen Jones on Twitter, when I was looking through my sock puppet account, talking about the fact that they need to have quotas for women. So it's almost.
But they don't know what a woman is. How can they have quotas when they don't think women exist? Does Sam Smith count under the quota?
The only time gender really matters, Dan, because it's a made-up thing, is in, like, French, when you're learning it at school. Je me suis levé, tu t'es levé, il s'est levé, il s'est levé. It doesn't exist other than that. You have biological sex, and that's the end of it. You know, with a very small minutiae of people who are part of an intersex thing, which is part of the thing. It's absolutely insane. They've got to stop meddling with our lives. Just let us get on with it. I like amazing actresses, and I like amazing actors, and I like amazing female singers, and I like amazing male singers. And, you know, you get male singers who are quite effeminate, and you get female singers who are quite masculine. It's all great. It doesn't need meddling with. And the Brits have basically created a situation for themselves where woke has gone to die. And it's great.
Well, look, I hope all of the other gender-neutral extremists are looking at the case of the Brit Awards and actually thinking twice before they make such a ludicrous decision. But look, Lawrence, the uber-woke Cambridge Council, oh yes, they're back. Their first civic event since voting to move towards vegan menus went down about as well as you'll expect. Almost zero guests were even willing to try the vegan options, leading to, quote, significant food waste and some very hungry guests at a time when lots of us, Lawrence, let's be honest, are struggling to feed our own families. But the council is digging its heels in, with Labour councillor Richard Swift stubbornly explaining we cannot force people to eat food they do not want to eat. The task for us is to make it so good people want to eat it without being told. So apparently now the only way we can convince people to eat vegan food will be to trick them into it. I mean, look, Lawrence, this one doesn't surprise me at all because vegan food on the whole is completely disgusting to taste and actually very unhealthy, very, very high in calories. Yet this council still trying to shove plant-based food down the throats of the residents of Cambridge who have said, we just don't want this.
I love the fact that they didn't want to write the second sentence. We can't force people to eat food that they don't want to eat. It's like, eat grass, pleb. It's like, you know, we live in this world where half of the people just want to be left alone to get on with their lives. And the other half of the people want to tell you what to do. And I was thinking about this all day as I was driving, you know, I was going back and forth, a manic day to day. And there's signs everywhere telling you what you can and can't do. Yeah. Some of them are useful, but not telling us that, you know, my kids have got meat-free Monday at schools. I got no email from the school. I found out, you know, from my son who goes, there's no meat. I need a packed lunch on that. It's like, stop trying to make me eat grass. If you want me to eat grass, I'm not going to do that. And if you're going to try and force everyone else to eat grass, why don't you just go and deliver your uneaten, highly processed rubbish to the Just Stop Oil protesters so they don't freeze to death during this period of extreme climate change?
Yeah, the coldest night, Lawrence, last night in 12 years. Surprisingly, that's not leading the BBC News or Sky News or ITV News. But do you remember earlier in the summer, we had a hot day and all of a sudden the world was coming to an end? Interesting.
It's always at Heathrow. Have you noticed? It was the hottest Heathrow has ever been, and it's the coldest Heathrow has ever been. I'm like, should we check our thermometers? And also, should we just check our anxiety? We're living in a period of extreme anxiety. And what we need to do, especially for our kids, because it's all about our kids at this juncture, is just turn around and say, there's not too much to worry about, guys. Yes, there are going to be challenges in the world that face us, but the fact that the sun is going to destroy us all and burn us all up in a big ball of hell is not one of the top ones. The top one is, can you heat your house? Can you feed your family? Is there a cost of living crisis? Why are the billionaires getting richer and why are the poorest getting poorer? And why are they being told to turn off their heating? You know, again, I take you back to California where families of immigrants gather in Walmart just so that they can have air conditioning. You know, just so they can be cool because they can't afford through these lunatic green policies of the woke errati of Gavin Newsom and that lot. It's too much. Leave us alone. We just want to get on with our lives.
Lawrence Fox with the Fox Report, and of course there'll be much more where that came from at 8 o'clock tomorrow night here on GBNews. But coming up, with Canada set to repatriate Jihadi Jack and the BBC promoting Shamima Begum, is the West nuts for allowing ISIS runaways to rehabilitate themselves? My Superstar panel will give their thoughts in the Media Buzz after 10. But first, after SNP politicians were caught posing in front of a Decapitate TERFs sign, is Sturgeon's party getting too close to hate-filled extremists encouraging violence against women? Neil Oliver is live straight after the break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The great Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. And the Be Kind left displayed their true colours over the weekend when SNP politicians posed in front of despicable placards calling for the death of women's rights activists. This sign, reading "Decapitate TERFs," a term for so-called trans-exclusionary radical feminists coined by hateful leftists, was brandished by supporters of Nicola Sturgeon's gender reform bill at a pro-trans rally in Glasgow. Pictured near the placard was the SNP's Kirsten Oswald MP and Kakub Stewart MSP. Colleagues Stuart MacDonald and Alison Thulis were also snapped at the rally. After a fierce reaction online, the SNP troop complained they didn't, quote, have eyes in the back of their head and claimed the signs weren't there when they started the demo. But they were swiftly slapped down by the likes of J.K. Rowling, who mocked a strange new form of temporary blindness has broken out among Scottish politicians. The shameful SNP conduct comes fresh off the back of Labour's own women-hating controversy. Labour MP Rosie Duffield has insisted her party has a, quote, abusive relationship with women after the behaviour of snarling colleague Lloyd Russell-Moyle during a debate on single-sex spaces in Parliament last week. Watch.
Goodness me, that speech was probably one of the worst transphobic dog whistle speeches that I've heard in an awful long time. The idea of linking trans people with predators, frankly, is disgusting, and you should be ashamed.
I think the honourable gentleman needs to calm down.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, that creep, Neil, then went up alongside her, the Tory MP, Miriam Cates, and sort of stared her out. And this was another example of men behaving very badly towards biological women who are trying to protect their rights. But Neil, let's start in Scotland, because it really does feel like Sturgeon's deranged Indie Ref 2 bid has now put her in bed with violent extremists.
Well, yes, Dan, I think it's very disturbing altogether, the images that you were just showing there. There's some kind of misogyny at the heart of some of the supporters of some of the the people that are fighting that that trans side of the argument. There's a woman hating nature around it somewhere. And I think that, if Labour has a women problem, I think Nicola Sturgeon has a women problem as well, which is, very hard to define or to understand. But I think she does have a problem with women. I think ultimately Nicola Sturgeon is only about Nicola Sturgeon, and as the years go on, I think that becomes more and more apparent. She will sacrifice anyone and anything for her own advancement and to secure her own position, up to and including her own sex. I think she's ready to throw anyone under the bus. It's hard to know what to begin. She's been an unmitigated disaster for Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon. Scotland is poorer in every sense of the word for Nicola Sturgeon having held power here for all of these years. She has achieved nothing for the country. She has undermined the country, run the country down by the things that she has done and the things that she has said. I think, though, that she's overplayed her hand on this one. I think, like many of her supporters, including those two characters that were shown beneath those appalling placards, I think she became, like many others, drunk on the power of COVID, the power that those emergency powers gave her, such that she and they think they can do no wrong and that they can do whatever they like. I think, when I say that she's overplayed it, it's because the vast majority of Scots have been vocally opposed to the gender reform bill. It appalls even her own supporters, or many of them. But I suspect she doesn't really care. As I said at the top, I think all she cares about is Nicola Sturgeon, and what Nicola Sturgeon wants. And she cannot comprehend, it's in her psychology that she can't comprehend, far less tolerate, the idea that anyone would have the temerity to disagree with her. And she's only enraged by any sort of challenge or dissent, and we're seeing that now. And it makes me wonder if she isn't preparing the ground for life beyond Scotland.
Oh, yes, which we've seen with one of her comrades, Neil, another COVID authoritarian, Jacinda Ardern. And they have globalist plans, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. I think she has plans for, Scotland is not big enough for Nicola Sturgeon anymore, I suspect. Or she, like Jacinda Ardern, she has outstayed her welcome in that post. And I do wonder if this whole stance around the trans debate isn't an audition in many ways, that she's now trying to be woker than woke in hopes of appealing to an audience elsewhere, maybe even a bigger audience elsewhere. Maybe she's got her eyes on a job in the WEF or the WHO, or without
any doubt.
Or somewhere
but Neil, the thing is, right, the decapitate TERFs sign, that's unquestionable. It was there. But listen to what Sturgeon said today about this situation. She said, the placards that I have seen in absolutely no way, shape or form accord with my views, and I would condemn the way in which those views were expressed and the views that were expressed there. And I don't think it is fair or credible to suggest that the elected representatives who were there in any way share or condone their views. I mean, Neil, she's living in an alternate reality, because you just know if this was a unionist MP who stood in front of a decapitate Sturgeon sign, it would be leading every news bulletin in Scotland, and Sturgeon would be out there leading the outrage.
Yes, there's just no way that it's credible to after the fact, having been snapped, standing right underneath those placards, to say that you didn't know that they were there. There's just no mitigating that. You cannot claim that. The image says what the image says, and as you say, if the same thing had happened to somebody else, somebody that was non-SNP, Nicola Sturgeon would have gone for the jugular without a shadow of a doubt, no matter what kind of protests of innocence the person involved might have made. Anyone attending a protest like that, especially someone in the public eye, if you're selfied or have a photograph taken of yourself in those sorts of circumstances, you've only got yourself to blame. It's absolutely
Indeed.
As soon as the shutter drops on you, cannot turn around and say.
And if Sturgeon was the decent woman who she likes to say she is, she would have condemned what went on. She would have condemned her own side. But of course, we know she is uber political. And I think you're right, Neil. Yes, she has overplayed her hand in Scotland, but there is a much bigger goal now, and it is a globalist goal, and we will keep on this. Neil Oliver.
Good luck the rest of the world on that one.
Indeed. God help them. Now, coming up, as he takes aim at salt-of-the-earth celebrities like Jim Davidson for supporting the Tories, is Sadiq Khan racist against white working-class men? That's what your pal and mine, Jim, believes in his exclusive rebuttal to London's failed mayor coming up at 10:20. But first, with Jihadi Jack due to be repatriated to Canada and Shamima Begum airing her latest bid for sympathy on the BBC, are the West playing with fire by allowing terrorists a second chance? My superstar panel thrash this one out and take a peek at tomorrow's front pages straight after this short break.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, with Canada set to repatriate the self-proclaimed enemy of Briton Jihadi Jack, while Shamima Begum continues her charm offensive aided by the BBC, is the West endangering its citizens by allowing ISIS runaways to return and rehabilitate their image? I'll debate that with my superstar panel next. And tonight, I'm joined by Carol Malone, Nigel Nelson and Carol McGiffin. Then stand by for 2 blockbuster exclusives you won't want to miss. First, after coming under attack from London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan for supporting the Tories.
That the only celebrities wishing to endorse the Tories are Jim Davidson and people of that ilk.
Well, one of the nation's favourite entertainers and comedians, Jim Davidson, will hit back at Smarmy Sadiq, who he says is racist against white working-class men. He's live with me in the studio at 10:20. Then the man who cleaned up New York's crime-ridden streets, Rudy Giuliani, joins me live as he slams calls to defund the UK's scandal-hit police force and explains why the answer to Britain's crime wave is to adopt his zero-tolerance stance. America's mayor lays down the law at 10:40. Also coming up, as he breaks his silence after the Meghan column scandal, is Jeremy Clarkson right that there is a woke, invisible army in the midst of a coup on society? That's our big debate at 10:30. Plus, the Sussex's sycophantic lapdog, Omid Scobie, has been sensationally exposed as a liar by his master.
A best-selling book describes the day special forces came to our house, all of which is utter nonsense.
Nonsense. That's in Harry's words. And not content with lobbying the Brits to erase gender, Sam Smith is now identifying as arguably Britain's top female music star.
Everyone seems to think that I'm Adele. In drag. Because we've never been seen in the same room together.
Those viral moments coming up, and we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, plus a new Greatest Britain and Union jackass named too. But before all that, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thanks very much indeed, and good evening to you. Our top story on GB News. The Prime Minister has asked an independent ethics advisor to investigate the Tory party chair's tax affairs. Nadhim Zahawi has welcomed the investigation, saying he's confident he acted properly throughout. The former Chancellor has admitted he paid a penalty to HMRC following an error over shares in the polling company YouGov, which he co-founded. He hasn't disclosed the size of the settlement, which is believed to be almost £5 million. The BBC chairman, Richard Sharp, says he welcomes a review into how he got his job by the Commissioner of Public Appointments. It's after Mr Sharp asked for a scrutiny panel to examine potential conflicts of interest following claims he was involved in securing a loan of up to £800,000 for Boris Johnson. He insists he didn't make a loan or arrange any financing and only made an introduction to a guarantor. Well, also today, thousands of ambulance workers have been going out on strike for the third time in 5 weeks. Unison and GMB union members across England and Wales walked out, along with staff at 2 hospital trusts in Liverpool. Further industrial action is planned in the coming weeks by nurses and other NHS workers. Union leaders are calling for fair pay, accusing the government of not wanting to find a resolution. Now, households that cut down their energy use for a second day in a row could save themselves some money. 26 suppliers have signed up to the National Grid's Demand Flexibility Scheme that's run its first live test today. It involves paying businesses and households to turn off electric appliances for an hour or 2. The electricity network's planning on running the scheme again tomorrow afternoon. If you're interested, the times are between 4:30 and 6 p.m. Now, Ofgem says the energy price cap could fall below £3,000 from April. It's said to be due to the fall in wholesale price of gas and electricity. It was possible to lower average costs for households during that time, and it would mean little savings for energy users due to the government's price guarantee, which protects from higher prices. But it's reported it could save the government billions of pounds. An 11th person has died from injuries after a mass shooting in Los Angeles yesterday. 10 other people were killed, another 10 injured when a gunman opened fire at a dance studio popular with people of Asian descent in Monterey Park. California police identified 72-year-old Hu Can Tran as the suspect. He later killed himself. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. The first front pages are in one story. Dominates the I newspaper, claiming Nadhim Zahawi faces the sack after Rishi Sunak ordered an investigation into whether the former Chancellor broke the ministerial code over his failure to pay millions in taxes. But the Daily Star pokes fun at the situation by reviving its Liz Truss lettuce joke. Isn't this one just a little bit old now, lads? Declaring, you don't need a Daily Star lettuce to see how this one ends. But you know what? I'm not covering this story tonight because I actually think this constant drumbeat and obsession with kicking politicians out of their jobs without any evidence that they've done anything even slightly illegal is completely wrong, and why the deranged media in this country has its priorities all wrong almost all of the time. Not my superstar panel, though, who are back with me. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, political editor at the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson, and the columnist and media personality Carol McGiffin. Now, the radicalised Muslim Jack Letts, more commonly known as Jihadi Jack, is said to be repatriated by Canadian authorities. The lowlife, who held dual UK and Canadian citizenship, proclaimed himself the enemy of Britain after fleeing his Oxfordshire home in 2014 to fight for the Islamic terrorist group ISIS. He was later captured by Kurdish authorities in 2017 and begged to be allowed to return here. Surprise, surprise. However, quite rightly, the Home Office tore up his passport 2 years later. Despite Canada's reported fury at being left fully responsible for the terrorists, Jihadi Jack is now one of 23 people that they've allowed to return from Syria. Meanwhile, the unrepentant Shamima Begum is keeping up her bogus charm offensive, which was disturbingly endorsed by the BBC podcast series I Am Not a Monster. So is the West increasingly looking like a soft touch when it comes to its treatment of ISIS runaways, Carol McGiffin?
Yeah. I mean, Canada, what a hellhole that must be. Let's
well, Trudeau's destroying the country, isn't he?
Trudeau is, yeah, exactly. Well, Jacinda's gone now. Now, just Trudeau, but they'll probably vote him in again. Look, I'm just glad they're not coming back here. I say good luck to them. Good luck to Canada and good luck to them. Although it is odd that all the attention is focused on these two, and then you think to yourself, well, you know, thousands of people are coming in on boats that suddenly disappear. You don't know who they are, you don't know what they're doing. And
some are almost certainly former members or current members of...
Quite possibly, exactly. So and they're not checked, and we don't know where they are. So, you know, it is important, actually. It's important that they don't come back to the UK, in my opinion. But I do think it's another giant distraction against things that are, you know, other things that are happening that are really worrying, that need to be stopped.
But Nigel, you're one of these woke lefties who says, oh no, Shamima has to come back. Why?
Because she was...
And what about Jihadi Jack? Do you want to take him back too?
No, because we took his passport away and the Canadians are lumbered with him. Canadians are doing exactly the right thing to actually take him, as are the US,
Well, Shamima has
Germany,
Bangladeshi
Finland.
citizenship, so she can try and go there where she would face the death penalty.
Well, she hasn't got Bangladeshi citizenship. That's the problem. They won't allow her in.
She has a right to it.
So she hasn't got a right to it. Not according to the Bangladeshis, so she's stateless. Point about Shamima Begum, regardless of whether she is contrite, remorseful or whatever, she was born and bred in this country, she was radicalised in this country, she is our responsibility.
Who was she radicalised by?
And also it is safer, Who
was she radicalised by?
She was radicalised online in this country.
She went online herself. She was perfectly aware of what was going on in Syria. She saw, like we saw, the beheadings. She saw men being burned alive. She saw all of that, and she still chose to go off to that country. And she joined a death cult that wanted to destroy the West, and she still will not speak against that death cult.
No,
even now.
And I'm not disputing any of that.
Yeah, but you want her back.
She's not even fazed by it.
It is safer to have these people back.
No, it is not. It's not. Why?
Safe to have her back.
The reason it's safer is because if you leave them in an internment camp in
Leave her in Syria. It's fine.
They will become even more radicalised and even more dangerous.
Can I just say...
What it does is it sets the ultimate example to any other young person in Britain right now thinking that we're a soft touch and they can go off and try joining some sort of radicalised group overseas, that actually there's no way back, and there should be no way back. And I think Trudeau is.
Can I just say that Sajid Javid, do you remember a couple of years ago when he revoked her citizenship? He said, if you knew what I knew, you would make the decision I've just made. And what had happened was the belief is that he saw some intelligence from the CIA where he saw what she'd been doing. Now we know some of what she was doing there. She was a member of the morality police. She used to strut around with a Kalashnikov over her shoulder. She sewed young, terrified kids into suicide suicide vest. The woman is a terrorist, and we don't want known terrorists back here.
If she's so dangerous, then isn't it better she is back in this country? She's arrested the moment she arrived.
Nigel, there is no way to bring a case against her.
Because we can't collect the evidence.
The terror services have made it really clear we can't gather the evidence from over there. So what will happen? She will come here, no evidence. We will put her in a council house. She will live there all of her life, where she'll be kept by taxpayers. And if she has been radicalised in Syria, if she has been, she will start messing about here. Terror plots. People will use her.
Isn't it more dangerous to let her stay there?
No, she can stay. What danger is she to us in Syria?
We don't know where she'll go after that.
Who cares where she goes?
Well, you obviously care if she comes here.
I do care if she comes here. As long as she doesn't come here, she can go anywhere.
Have her under surveillance.
Why should we?
Well, do you know what? Believe me, if I was in Canada, knowing that Jihadi Jack was walking around, because this is not a bloke I trust. This is not a bloke I trust.
Nor
when
should
you know what he
that's
did.
Right.
Do you remember what he said? He said he thought it was a praiseworthy thing to kill British soldiers, and he would love the idea of shooting bullets in their head.
People. What I'm saying is the countries responsible for them should take their responsibility.
Why should we bring her here and have our services?
Because we're responsible for
our terrorists. We're not. She doesn't have a British passport anymore. Why should we have our terror services?
And it was the Supreme Court judge who made that decision.
Yes, it was.
Watching her, and
this has gone through the legal process because it was the lefty judge.
We haven't even addressed why the BBC are doing this Woman podcast and being an apologist.
Well, that's just gross. That's just
international public interest.
Oh, rubbish.
Oh, it is not.
Nigel,
well, how is it?
The name of the series is I Am Not a Monster. Can you not see that the BBC is coming at this from a revolting editorial position defending a terrorist?
But if you listen to that podcast, it's very even-handed about, and she actually admits
There's
that
nothing even-handed
she went
about
there voluntarily.
Do you know what she admits? To her, a tragedy was the fact she couldn't get mint aero in Syria. She didn't talk about being sorry for the deaths and for the murders and for the women who were raped and buried alive. She didn't say any of that.
But that's the point.
She couldn't get mint aero.
But I wouldn't believe her if she did say
No, I wouldn't either.
I don't believe anything she says.
Yeah. No, I don't either.
And the only journalists who do believe her are the BBC ones. Everyone else who's interviewed her.
But they're trying to revive her reputation.
Of course they are. Yes. Of course they are. And if there's any reason why I call the BBC the British bashing corporation, it is the fact that they have now produced a podcast about Shamima Begum called I Am Not a Monster.
Yeah.
She is a monster.
Yes.
Exactly. Now, hilariously, moving on, Harry and Meghan's odd little hagiographer Omid Scobard has been exposed as a liar by, you wouldn't believe it, Prince Harry. In his propaganda piece on the couple finding freedom, remember that, Scobie claimed Meghan took part in a staged kidnapping as part of a security training course where she, quote, was bundled into the back of a car by a pretend terrorist, taken to a different location and then saved by officers firing fake guns. It goes on, Kate didn't undergo her training until after her wedding to William, but Meghan's took place earlier as the couple had received an unusually high number of threats. Anyway, it all sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? And authoritative from little oddball Scobie. But here's Prince Harry to tell us what really went down.
There's been some reporting about the palace deciding to instruct Meghan guerrilla warfare and survival tactics in the event of a kidnapping attempt. A best-selling book describes the day special forces came to our house, all of which is utter nonsense. Meg wasn't given 1 minute of training.
Now, Scobie blamed who else? The palace, for standing up the apparently false story. But I would say to Scobie, don't take it personally. After all, Harry's book was a pack of lies too. McGiffin, Malone, Nigel Nelson, do stand by, because coming up, after he breaks his silence over the Meghan row in a bombshell column, is Jeremy Clarkson right that there is a woke, invisible army taking over and destroying Britain? That's our big debate when the Media Buzz returns at 10:30. But first, as he takes aim at salt-of-the-earth celebrities like Jim Davidson for supporting the Tories, is Sadiq Khan being discriminatory against white working-class men? Well, the man who attracted the ire of London's failed mayor joins me next for his exclusive rebuttal you don't want to miss. Jim versus Sadiq, straight after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon.
Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, last Friday, London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan made a disgraceful attack on one of our best-loved entertainers while responding to a claim that he had put aside £10,000 for a celebrity endorsement at a launch event dedicated to the cost of living crisis. Watch.
Just to confirm, Ms. Smith, that's your mayoral decision that you signed off that said there was £10,000 for a celebrity endorsement at an event. You signed that off. You might not have got someone that wanted to endorse your policies, and I'm not sure how you justify £10,000, but it did exist and you did sign it off.
I mean, listen, we know that the only celebrities wishing to endorse the Tories are Jim Davidson and people of that ilk. We don't think it's a good use of money to have celebrities endorsing the debt-free advice bus.
Well, joining me for his first interview since that unprovoked attack, the man himself, Jim Davidson. And I mean, Jim, that was a loaded attack from Sadiq Khan. You and your ilk. What's he talking about, Jim? What does he mean?
I've never thought of myself as an ilk, more of a caribou, really. I don't know what he meant. I think he was sort of saying, though we don't like Jim Davidson, and he's the one that votes Tory, so they're all bad, him and people like him.
But who? What white men?
Old people, foot fetish, you know, sort of stockings and anything. What is an ilk? What does he mean by me? People that vote Conservative. So we're the bad guys. If you don't agree with the little funny Mayor Khan, you are, by default, the bad guy.
But quite a lot of critics have actually said that comment from him was racist, because if you were to have said that about him, Sadiq Khan and his ilk...
Well, it doesn't really bother me. I don't mind people being racist about me. It doesn't bother me. But the ilk thing, for someone that comes from, I don't know, what is it, in Pakistani background or whatever, a ethnic minority, as it was called, shouldn't generalise. I get accused of generalising, you know, about things. And comedians generalise about people, especially the old ones. So he should know better than to say an ilk. What is my ilk? I think all the ilks should get together and say to him, look, stop being so silly. Get on with it. He looks very angry, doesn't he? For a little bloke.
Well, he's an angry man.
Fog-on, leg-on, doesn't he?
He's an angry man, and he's destroying what I think was the greatest city in the world.
Yeah.
But I think what is inexcusable to me, Jim, is the way that he wants to sow division. Because, look, yes, on the whole, London is a Labour city, but... At the last mayoral election, Sean Bailey, who's one of our superstar panellists, came damn close to knocking Khan off his perch. So to sort of dismiss all Tory voters as bad people, which I think he was doing there, I think is incredibly intolerant from a man who claims, you know, that he's part of this big, kind mob.
It sort of tells you what he really is. What he's really thinking. I think he's let himself go. And for someone that rules one of the greatest cities in the world, he should know better than to say that, especially about me. I'm quite hurt.
Poor Jim. I'll protect you.
Dan, you're wasting away. You've got to eat...
shut up.
No, you've got to eat steak and chips 3 times after meals now.
No, I'm not allowed
look at you.
carbs.
Here's
I'm
you,
not
look. You can't see Dan now. Look behind this.
As if, no, I'm doing this new 16-8 thing where you're not meant to eat for 16 hours a day. But anyway, I struggle with that because I want to eat for 24 hours
Just
a day.
Eat as much as you want, but don't swallow anything. That's it. Don't swallow, Dan. It's bad for you.
Now, Jim, back to Mr. Khan.
Yes.
Is it true that no celebrities support the Conservative Party? Is that your experience?
To be honest with you now, I've always said to my Conservative mates, you know, I will go along and do a show to raise money for these young MPs and whatever. But I won't go on the stand on the soapbox and say blah, blah. I think celebrity endorsement, and this is where he might be right, celebrity endorsement is a double-edged weapon, you know. So the Conservatives don't have me as a celebrity to do stuff. I support them. I happen to be a celebrity or an ex-celebrity, whichever way you want to have a look at it.
Oh, you're a celebrity, Jim. Come on. Don't be so modest, please.
I just wanted to hear you say it. That. No, but, you know, Eddie Izzard is a celebrity supporter. I'm not really.
But isn't the issue, though, that because of these sorts of attacks from left-wing politicians, actually, lots of celebrities now are
frightened to death.
Stiff.
You can't say I'm a Conservative because you get beaten up. You know, you get bullied. Like, especially with these Khan and these militant lefties, you know, will say, he disagrees with us. He's the bad guy. It's wrong. It's wrong. And so if he's saying Jim Davidson and his ilk, does he mean the ilk that voted the Conservative Party in? You know?
Or the 52% of people who voted for Brexit, who he seems to despise.
I am in that ilk. So he needs to get himself a bit of an ilk. He needs to ilk up the mayor. Mayor, ilk up.
But isn't everything that Khan does now to try and distract from what's really going on in London, Jim? Because if you look at what's happening in London, it's all down to him. It's become a crime-ridden city. It's become a city that is impossible
Who's
to
looking after the
Who's
looking after the police? Is he basically the police commissioner of the Metropolitan Police? Look what is going on, right? We've had an asylum seeker, an immigrant into this country, an asylum, 21 years of age, murdered someone, found out that he'd murdered 2 other people in Europe. And what do the police do? They arrest Rishi for not having his seatbelt on.
What did you make of that?
Crazy.
Issuing this fixed
he should be sacked. He wasn't wearing his seat. It's a bad example. Get a life, everybody. It's like the guy that is not done his tax form right.
Nadeem Zahawi.
Oh, fall into the Labour Party. OK, so Keir says, do we have any policies? No. Do we have any policies that are better than the Conservatives? No. But good news, one of their guys hasn't paid their tax. Yeah.
And actually...
And the PM never wore his seatbelt.
Well, actually, I'm glad you've raised the Zahawi story because I made a decision earlier today not to cover the story. I know it's on the front of every newspaper. Yeah. I know it's at the top of every news bulletin. But what's actually happening, Jim, is there is now this deranged media witch hunt, and they just move. Have you noticed? From one politician to the next. So it started with Boris, it moved on to Truss, then they went to Suella Braverman, then they went to Dominic Raab, then they went to Gavin Williamson. Now it's Zahawi's time. He has done nothing illegal. No. And by the way, I would also point out that this assumption in the media that HMRC get everything right is completely wrong, because very often, I'm not going to mention any names, but they come after good, honourable celebrities who have always paid their taxes. So all I'm saying is, right now, Zahawi, not referring to you, Jim, I'm sure you have, but right now, there is no evidence that Zahawi has done anything wrong. But
nothing wrong. And he's paid, so according to the paper, £1 million. You know, if you don't pay your tax... Really?
That's
he's doing really well.
Yeah. I mean, he is rich.
Is he?
And the Labour Party obviously hates anyone who's rich and successful and self-made. Critically, he's self-made. I mean, this is a guy who came into our country and has done incredibly. I think he is a great success story. And if this was America, he would be celebrated for that. But here, they want to tear him down.
I know. Everyone wants to shoot everybody down now. When they're going to shoot down the mayor for what he has said, not just about me, it could have been anyone, someone of his ilk, the ilk that votes Conservative, so must be. And to sort of shun it off. Oh, Jim Davidson and his ilk.
Well, I've got an idea. Why don't you challenge Sadiq Khan to a head-to-head debate and actually put this to the test?
I couldn't do it.
View.
I couldn't do it. He'd turn me to bits. I come from Charlton. I ain't very bright.
Jim, back yourself.
What?
You're currently selling out. Huge
I know, but I just go on and tell dirty jokes. But I couldn't stop myself. Do you know what they say? The House of Commons, they sit 2 sword lengths apart. I'd have to get a bigger sword, mate. I've often thought sometimes, you know, the other night in Southend, I had, I don't know, 1,800 people stood up, absolutely cheering the place down. I thought, I could be their MP. And it'd be nice to get the votes to say, Jim, we want you to do it, but then you've got to get up in the morning and wash and everything and go to work and go to the House of Commons.
Actually hang around those horrible people in Westminster. I know.
All them SNP funny people, you know, all declaring who they can be.
You
girl,
definitely
boy,
have the best
something.
job.
Oh, no, I couldn't have it. We're better off in show business, Dan.
Have you read...
do you want to come out with something to eat? You look a bit thin.
Oh, shut up, as if. God, I need to starve myself for about 3 weeks. Have you read Prince Harry's book?
No, I wouldn't read it. Because I like Prince Harry. I've known Prince Harry. But I don't want to sit there and put myself in a position to read something about someone I love, and that is the King. I won't do it.
Because he's been very horrible about his father and his brother.
Well, I don't like that.
But you're torn. Your loyalties are torn because you love Prince Charles, but you also have loyalties to Harry too.
I look at it as none of my business. Kids fall out with fathers. Fathers fall out with daughters. Things. It's a family thing. But to be honest with you, I think Harry, Mr. Little Head, is ruling Mr. Big Head, and he's on a roller coaster that he can't get off. And the King will stop that roller coaster and let him back in, because that's the type of man he is. He's a great man. I'll tell you a little story about the King.
He will do that. I disagree with
when
that.
Jethro died, when Jethro died, the comedian, the Prince phoned me up. He was the Prince then, and said, "Do you have an address that I can send some flowers that won't distract from his funeral?" That's the type of man he is. He's a great man, a great king, and I think, you know. He must be going through hell, Dan.
Yeah.
But he'll do it because he's the King. He'll sort his family out. God bless him.
Fascinating. Jim Davidson, so great to see you again. Stand-up legend, of course. And these days, by the way, he's blowing up the internet too, taking a wry look at the week's headlines on his Ustream platform, sticking 2 fingers up to cancel culture and promising you the chance to laugh like you used to.
Sticking 2 fingers up? What's a finger?
God, I thought I'd got away with that.
He needs
Go.
food. He needs
Go.
food.
Get him off screen now.
Okay,
Coming up,
go on.
America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who stopped New York's crime wave in its tracks, says a zero-tolerance stance to the solution is tackling lawless Britain. He's going to join me at 10:40. But next in the media buzz, is Jeremy Clarkson right that there is an invisible army of woke warriors destroying Britain? That's our big debate next.
Correct.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight in our media buzz. More front pages, and the Daily Telegraph leads on an Afghan asylum seeker who stabbed aspiring Royal Marine Thomas Roberts, previously having shot 2 men in Serbia before crossing the channel. Of course, Jim Davidson was referring to that story before the break. The Sun leads with an exclusive scoop on Oasis star Noel Gallagher, whose wife of 22 years, Sarah McDonald, has reportedly approached Prince Harry's lawyer, Jenny Afia, after filing for divorce. My superstar panel back now. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, political editor at the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson, and the media personality, Carol McGiffin. Now, after a week of attacks by the Duke and Duchess of Woke's mob over his controversial Meghan Markle column, despite a futile apology, Jeremy Clarkson has finally hit back in a new piece for the Sunday Times. Playing it safe by making no direct reference to the Sussex saga that has plagued him, Clarkson took aim at what he brands an invisible army attempting to launch a coup on society by instilling a woke left-wing agenda. So this is what Clarkson had to say. Think about what typically happens in a military operation and then look what the woke left has done here. They sit at home, hiding in the impenetrable shadow of anonymity, inventing new rules to ensnare anyone and everyone they deem to be unworthy, out there and invisible. There really is an army with the ability to remove from public life anyone who disagrees with its increasingly militant viewpoint. And just looking at the aftermath of Clarkson's own comments with Amazon and now ITV possibly axing the staff for simply speaking freely, could he be right, Carol Malone?
I think he's absolutely right. You know, it's interesting. I was stuttering there. It is an invisible woke army that exists mainly on social media, and yet it has infiltrated every aspect of society in our communities. And he's right when he, people are getting cancelled every day. And let's be clear about what cancel means. It's a phrase that we use kind of glibly. What it means is your career is ruined, your reputation is ruined, your ability to earn money is ruined, your family are distressed by this. So this is because you have said something that the ideological left, that you disagree with what they've said. And I find it astonishing. It's everywhere. Now, look at the Labour Party currently. They are attacking their own women MPs and Tory MPs for objecting to the gender reform bill because they are sticking up for women's rights. And they are now trying to cancel, the Labour Party is trying to cancel Rosie Duffield, who speaks so very bravely on this. You know, every J.K. Rowling, if she wasn't rich and powerful and hadn't got the ability to outstay them, she would be cancelled by now. We've seen it a million times. You know, the woke mob has infiltrated our schools. Our kids are being indoctrinated with a left-wing ideology. You know, history is being manipulated. It's in every aspect of our society, and we don't know who they are. This is the problem. They're anonymous people on social media.
And Nigel, I'm so glad we actually heard from Clarkson on this, because I was a bit worried when he made that fawning apology to the awful Harry and Meghan, who were never going to accept it, by the way, that we'd lost him. For good, because he spoke about trying not to offend anymore. But actually, it makes me think maybe he's sat back over the last couple of weeks and thought, actually, I'm not going to lose who I am.
Yeah, I didn't see the connection, actually, with the apology to Harry and Meghan. I do disagree with him about the invisibility of this so-called woke army. I mean, I'm sitting here on your sofa.
You're part of it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You're leading the charge proudly.
Why is woke a term of abuse suddenly?
Because it is. Because if anyone disagrees with what you say, they are rubbish and they are cancelled.
Well,
that is not right.
Woke people like you, although you're good because you're on this sofa, but woke people on the whole...
I'm visible.
...use wokedom to try and shut down free speech, to try and shut down debate.
All that happens
trying to shut Clarkson down.
All that woke means is being alert to racial and social injustice.
Well, that's what you think it means.
Why is that so bad?
That's what you think it means. But for people like Clarkson, look at what's happened to him now with the companies he works for. Yeah. You know... Amazon have cancelled his series. They're a fantastic Clarkson film. ITV will not say whether they're going to re-engage him for the next years, even though, I think it was the Mail did a poll today, 3,000 people, which is a lot for a poll, 78% of which he said he should keep his job on ITV. But no one's listening to the people that watch telly. They're listening to this tiny little woke brigade.
That's not a woke argument at all.
It is.
It is a woke
because
argument.
These corporations have completely been infiltrated by the woke army, and all they care about is the woke comments on Twitter. I mean, McGiff, what did you think about the whole Clarkson controversy? Because in reality, look, you can say it was an unwise comment. It was also a joke.
It was a joke.
It was so...
Might have been a bad joke, but it was a joke.
It was so obviously a joke. And you kind of knew that what was going to happen straight after that. And actually, it kind of just followed the script. You could see it happening. And I don't know why he apologised. If I were him, I wouldn't have apologised. I wouldn't.
It was a big mistake.
It was a big mistake.
But I think he was under huge pressure from the likes of Amazon to make that.
Yeah, and this is the problem. It's like he says at the beginning of his article, it's serious, and it really is serious, and it's dangerous because the way they're trying to change the way everybody thinks to the way they think. And I know...
And also how we talk, how we write.
But if you make a joke that goes wrong... If you make a joke that goes wrong...
It's called free speech, Nigel.
But if it goes wrong...
It's called free speech.
That's a
joke. No, that's the price you pay for free speech. You offend people. You cause controversy. That's the price you pay.
But Jeremy accepts he got that wrong.
But do you not...
The joke misfired, so he made an apology.
But should he lose his mainstream TV career, despite the fact that he remains one of the most popular TV presenters in the country?
And do you know, can I just say about apologies?
And he's brilliant at it.
Can I just say about apologies? The woke mob have rendered apologies pointless because they don't want an apology. What they want is vengeance. They don't want someone to say
And Harry and Meghan proved that.
Completely proved that.
And they do want to change our history. They want to change the language. They want to change absolutely everything.
Indeed.
And unless people stand up and fight against this, and, you know, it's an exaggeration to say it's an actual war, but it kind of is.
Well, as Elon
Musk
Musk said, it's the woke mind virus. He thinks it's one of the most important battles in society today. And so do I.
I agree.
So do I. Now, look, Sam Smith has hit out at the offensively woke Brit Awards this week, saying it was a shame that not one female artist was nominated for the Gender Neutral Artist of the Year award. An odd position to take, considering the non-binary chart topper was one of the loudest voices lobbying bosses to erase gender from their categories in the first place. And not content with having enabled the exile of British music's most talented starlets, Smith is now seemingly identifying as one of the few who has managed to survive the war on women, pop star Adele. Are you confused? Well, look at this.
All right,
I mean, it's
that
just
is a good one.
Everyone seems to think that I'm Adele. In drag. Because we've never been seen in the same room together. And if you slow down her voice, it sounds maybe a bit like mine. So people think that we're the same person, and I'm just in drag right now.
He wishes.
All right, Sam, you can try as hard as you like, but I'm not sure that anyone is convinced. No, I'm not convinced.
No.
No, any of you guys convinced?
No.
What? It sounds like he's gone nuts there. Why? It's just...
I think he has gone nuts.
Carol Malone,
Adele is stunningly beautiful.
Do stand by, because coming up is Rosie Duffield in with a chance of being named today's greatest Briton after breaking ranks with Labour to stand up for women's rights. GBUJ on the way soon. But first, as fears of a UK defund the police movement grow in the wake of Met scandals, America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who stopped New York's crime wave in its tracks, says a zero-tolerance stance to the solution is tackling lawless Britain, not declaring the authorities. He joins me next.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview channel 236.
And YouView channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for one of the most successful politicians in US history, Rudy Giuliani. Now, the deplorable antics of bad apple cops and a violent crime wave across Britain in recent weeks has sparked growing calls from the left to defund our police forces. The theory is largely an American concept fueled by far-left agitators like BLM and Antifa, but it now appears to be gaining traction here in the UK. But as mayor of crime-ridden New York City for 8 years until 2001, Giuliani says the answer is not to defund our police, but to instead take a zero-tolerance approach to crime, no matter how small. With tough leadership, he transformed New York from a criminal cesspit into a crime-fighting haven that saw robberies plunge 67% and murder drop by 2/3. And I'm delighted to say he joins me now. Mr. Giuliani, great to have you. How can Britain benefit from your zero-tolerance approach that brought so much success to New York during your time in charge, when the lefties over here are saying, hang on a moment, it's time to defund the police?
Yeah, it's almost like revisiting history. You know, we've already been through this back in the 70s and the 80s. The theory that you're talking about of zero tolerance is the broken windows theory. And it was really developed not by me, but by two professors, George Kelling and particularly James Q. Wilson of Harvard. And they tried it out. The idea is if you don't pay attention to small things, they're going to get worse. And if you create an atmosphere of disrespect for the law, then over a period of time, criminals, almost like children, keep pushing the envelope. They try to find out how far they can go. And then finally, when you have your confrontation with them, you're at a point of, very serious crime. So you've got to start, and you can't, sometimes there are too many crimes to arrest everyone. Not everything means an arrest. Some can mean a summons. I'll give you an example. We had a terrible graffiti problem in New York when I became mayor in '94. In 2 years, we got rid of it. Do you know the sentences we gave people who were doing it illegally? We sentenced them to the graffiti. We didn't put them in jail. We didn't handcuff them. We didn't treat them the way you would treat a murderer or a robber. But we treated them proportionate to the wrongdoing. They were taking somebody else's property who didn't want their pictures painted on it, and were painting it almost in this narcissistic sense that we can, and it is narcissism, that we can do anything we want. So we have to teach people in society that all of us have to restrain our desires to do everything we want because there are other people living with us. It's no more complicated than that. And sometimes it's painted as almost like a fascist. It isn't. It's a much more intelligent application of, if the violations are small, you don't come after them like a ton of bricks, but you find something that gets them aware of the fact, can't do that. You can't just write on somebody else's property, not yours.
Because in London at the moment, Mr. Giuliani, where we have this failed bloke, hard left guy, Sadiq Khan, he was obviously the hater of Donald Trump. You might remember he allowed the big Trump blimp to go up in the sky when he was on his presidential visit here. Often, Rudy, it seems like he's on the side of the criminals, not the police.
He should be a mayor in America. I mean, he should be a Democratic mayor in America. George Soros. We have about 40 or 50 of those. And if you looked at last year, 17 of them accomplished an unbelievable feat. They accomplished the most murders in their city in the history of America. For example, Philadelphia, one of our great old cities, around a long time, it had more murders last year than ever before in its history. It has a district attorney elected by George Soros, who doesn't believe in putting people in jail, and a mayor who's a very, very, not a normal Democrat, a very left-wing Democrat, who somehow thinks that people shouldn't be held responsible for the crimes they commit. It's so bad that we're having like a revolution within the Democratic Party. The Democratic Committee in Philadelphia were made up of really tough old Democrats. Philadelphia is a tough old Democrat city. They wanted to get rid of the DA. And they put up, but Soros's money beat them.
So Rudy, can you say now, looking 2 years on from the BLM movement, given that the calls to defund the police and defund the Met Police, specifically in the UK, are growing, can you say categorically that the concept of defunding the police has failed in the US?
100%. It has definitely failed. That is not 100% accepted. I would say it's about 70% accepted. A great example is Rochester, New York. A very, very fine old American city, the home of IBM originally. For a city exceptionally well accomplished, Kodak. They decided to do a defund the police, get rid of the police. Let's use social workers instead. Last year and the year before, the crime there was catastrophic.
Wow.
Per capita had 5 times more crime than New York City. I mean, there's never been a time when you would go to an upstate city in New York and it was more dangerous than New York City. Now we've got 4 of them that are more dangerous than New York City because they defunded the police.
Crazy.
Now 3 refunded the police, and they're doing a little better now. But one of them, Rochester, hasn't yet, and they're still suffering enormous numbers of murder. So
Absolutely
by and large,
it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. And we need to look to the US because let me tell you, this defund the police movement is coming to the UK and it is disturbing and it doesn't work. Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, thank you so much, Rudy. We'll speak again soon.
God willing.
Thank you, Rudy. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. My superstar panel returned. Carol Malone, who is your nominee for tonight's greatest Briton?
Mine is Labour MP Rosie Duffield for having the courage to stand up in the Commons while the men in her own party jeered her and heckled her and shouted her down for speaking up for women's rights. She was criticising the gender reform bill.
Let's have a little look at this.
Yeah.
This bill seeks to allow anyone at all to legally self-identify as either sex and therefore enter all spaces. Does he not understand how vitally important this is at the moment?
Yeah, incredible stuff. Nigel Nelson, your nominee.
Yep, it's the HMRC team who doggedly pursued Nadim Zahawi over his tax affairs while the Chancellor was their boss.
And Carol McGiffin, your nominee.
It's Jeremy Clarkson, actually. Yes.
You forgot there.
No, it was. Yeah, for pointing out the absolute truth that there is a war being waged by an invisible army of woke monsters and they need to be stopped.
He's back. He's back. But look, I'm going to go for Rosie Duffield. I know she won last week, but I'll tell you why. She wrote an incredible piece over the weekend for Unheard about Labour's war on women, and it's so important, and I think it's why women are actually in danger in this country if Keir Starmer ends up Prime Minister. Carol Malone, your Union jackass.
OK, in contrast to that, my jackass is a guy called Lloyd Russell Moyle, who's also a Labour MP. He was one of them who was heckling Rosie
And we
Duffield.
played it earlier in the show.
Yep, and he's also one of the people who shared a platform the other week, it was last week again, with a trans activist called Sarah Jane Barker, a woman who served 30 years in jail for attempted murder, for kidnap and for torture. And he thinks to burnish his work credentials, he's sharing a platform with people like this. He's a disgrace. He also menaced Tory MP, a girl called Miriam Cates, in Parliament last week as well. He's shocking. He should have been suspended.
Yeah, I completely agree. Nigel Nelson, your nominee.
Yeah, it's the BBC chairman, Richard Sharp, for helping Boris Johnson get an £800,000 loan while the ex-PM was considering him for the role.
And Carol McGiffin, your nominee.
It's Sadiq Khan again. I think that's about the third time I've nominated him.
What's your reason tonight,
Well, for
Carol?
extending the ULEZ zone in London, which is going to literally break people who won't be able to afford to go to work, and yet he tries to blame it all on the fact that people in the outside of London area, the Greater London area, are all dying from bad air quality.
Yeah, nonsense.
I mean, it really does feel like Mr. Khan is going out of his way now to destroy what was
London.
the greatest city in the world.
He is.
And look, I've got to go with Khan because I feel like on tonight's show you've had such an awakening as to why this bloke is so bad. That brilliant reasoning there from McGiffin, but we've had Jim Davidson attacking him tonight quite rightly for that totally unprovoked insult where Sadiq Khan spoke about Jim Davidson and his ilk. And then you've got Rudy Giuliani, who was very successful reducing crime in New York, saying, hang on a moment, the direction that Khan is going in is very dangerous and it's not going to work. So, of course, Sadiq Khan, maybe not original, but he's certainly today's Union Jackass.
We want
Carol
Rudy
Malone,
for mayor.
Yeah, we
Carol
do.
McGiffin,
He's fantastic.
And Nigel Nelson, thank you so much. A brilliant superstar panel. But I'm back again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. I'll see you there. Next up, it's Headliners. Good night.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this
you
morning.
even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already depressed.
Oh, Eamon.
Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind, and we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.